Okay, you're good to go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the County Council's website. Members, you are now aware that you need to keep your video cameras switched on for the duration of the meeting and keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Please click your right-hand function if you wish to ask a question or even make a comment. There's always a risk that we may run into technical problems and ask for your patience if we do so. Should this occur, I would declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If it's not possible to address the fault, the meeting may be abandoned until such time it can be reconvened. Can I remind members and officers and public speakers that all virtual meetings will be recorded, and of these recordings will be published on the County Council's website. So please turn all your mobile phones, or at least turn them to silent. Thank you. So thank you, members, for that. So members, I will begin by calling the names of all members of the committee to establish your attendance. Please confirm your presence. Councillor Ashwood, please.
Present, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hartford.
Present.
Councillor Hunt. I think Councillor Hunt may be on mute, but we know he's here, don't we?
Helpful. I am present.
Aye, thank you, Councillor Hunt, for that. Councillor Kindersley.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, present, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Gowing.
Present.
And obviously myself, I'm here. So thank you very much. So would Democratic Services report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Mandy Smith, and Councillor John Gowing is substituting for her.
Thank you, Councillor Gowing, for stepping in at short notice. Thank you very much for that. So, right. So, thank you. Now, does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest, please?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ashwood. Please do so.
Item 5, I'm a member of Trampington Residents Association who have made representations. I haven't discussed the application with them. Any views I express are purely my own.
Thank you, Councillor Ashwood. Anyone else at all?
Councillor Scott has a hand raised, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Scott, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to disclose that the Roger Asham historical site is within my division. And in relation to that, I appeared before the Communities and Partnership Committee, speaking as the local member on that occasion, when what was in issue was the accommodation that would be provided to the staff of the library service were they to be removed. And I wouldn't consider that precludes me from sitting on the planning committee in relation to this aspect of the planning application. That before Communities and Partnership solely related to the alternative proposal for staff. In relation to Roger Asham's site, residents have, of course, as one would expect, contacted me because it's within my division and they are concerned. And I have, of course, communicated with them, as I have communicated with local city council members who have contacted me. And the steps that I have taken have been to alert them all to the applications and to advise them that in fact the applications, there was a part that would go before the city and there was a part that was referable to the county council. But I have not expressed a view and I have not taken a view, being of course very well aware that as a member of the planning committee that was the approach I should take. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ashwood and Scott. So when we reach that item, the Democratic Services hosting the meeting will be temporarily move you as a participant, Councillor Ashwood, that is. You will be invited to rejoin the item when it's been concluded and a vote has taken place. So please stay close to your computer. So thank you for that. Thank you,
Chairman,
members.
can I just query something? I have asked to speak as the local member.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. Yes, you're down to speak as a local member, Councillor Ashwood.
Thank
Confirmed. Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda number 3. We asked to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 5th of November 2020. That seems a long while ago, doesn't it? As a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to click the raised hand function to the right of the screen, please? Doesn't seem to me as though any members have got issues with the minutes. So on that basis, the recommendation to approve the minutes is carried, and I will sign a hard copy when we return to the office. So now we'll move to the main part of the meeting, agenda item number 4, Roger Asham Library Depot. Can I invite Dallas Owen to introduce the report, please, Dallas? So whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I'll try and get the PowerPoint up for you.
Thank you.
Are you all seeing it as a full screen, or are you seeing a part screen?
Dallas, we're not seeing anything at all, or certainly I'm not.
Okay, pardon. Share. Sorry for the difficulties.
No worries. You know, things do take a little time sometimes.
No, it's not letting me do that again. Right. Right. I'm trying to remember how we did it the other day. How did we do it the other day? Because it's not letting me do it.
Dallas, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll try and get a shared folder up for Dan to be able to do it if you can't manage it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's not coming up. Sorry, I don't know.
Oh,
If
no
I'm
worries.
having difficulties with my internet or something today.
Modern technology at its worst.
I know.
I've just saved that in the area for Dan, and I'll just put Jane's there just in case there's another technical issue.
Okay, thank you.
if I could just add that there have been terrible problems in Cambridge today, because I had a terrible time actually getting on, and I had to shut down my machine several times in order to do so. So I think it's understandable that the office is having difficulty. I know it's a different function, but perhaps it's just the climate or the day.
That's just loading now, Chair.
Thank you, Dan.
There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes, thank you.
Just let me know when you need me to click forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The proposal before you is a Regulation 3 application at the Roger Asham Library Depot, Asham Road in Cambridge. There is a concurrent listed building consent application reference 20/01446/LBC under consideration by the Cambridge City Council, Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Services. Officers across the councils have worked jointly to ensure that all concerns could be considered in one planning forum. This is expanded upon in paragraph 9.34 of the report. Thank you, Dan. The development comprises alterations to the entrance, including new doors, windows and canopy, erection of a single-storey extension, additional car parking spaces, internal remodelling works to allow the change of use from a library storage depot and office to a register office for registering births, deaths and stillbirths, dealing with legal preliminaries for ceremonies, conducting ceremonies and associated functions. Your agenda pack is comprised of agenda plans 1, the site location, agenda plan 2, existing plans and elevations, agenda plan 3, proposed site plan, agenda plan 4, proposed plans and elevations, agenda plan 5, proposed ground floor showing alterations, and agenda plan 6, soft landscape plan. Whilst there are no statutory objections to the proposal, the application has been brought before you as it was called in by Councillor Scott. The consultee comments can be found in section 6 of the report. Members will be aware that a late representation on this planning application was received from a local Cambridge resident, and this was circulated by Democratic Services yesterday, so that you are able to take account of the concerns raised in addition to those summarised in my planning report. This slide in front of you now shows the wider area, which includes the A14, Cambridge Science Park, M11, Madingley Park and Ride, City Centre, the registry office and Shire Hall here, and the site here, and this is Huntingdon Road along there. Can we go on to the next slide, please? This zooms in a little bit more, so you can see Shire Hall, the Octagon registry office here, and the site is here. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the site application site is here. The neighbouring residential properties surround the site, and then you've got the educational use, which is this site here. The grade 2 listed buildings are shown with the red stars, and including this bit of the building here. The TPOs, there's a group TPO of trees which are shown with the black stars and are numbered. And as you can see, tree 7 of that group TPO is the magnolia to the rear of the building. And the magnolia is to be removed to facilitate development, which the tree officer did not object to. See the consultee comments at 6.2 of the report, and the impact on trees is considered at paragraphs 9.21 and 9.22 of the report. I'd also like to say that with regards to the magnolia tree, it is often more expensive and difficult to do than most people think. And they often require a large tree spade machine, which is unlikely to fit in the location without potentially damaging the building. A large hole would be required to relocate the existing tree, which would require consistent watering, and that would be in much higher quantities than standard tree watering to ensure it survives the shock of moving. And therefore it is recommended that the tree is not relocated, and that is why there are replacement trees as part of the proposal. You'll also see with the blue stars on this plan, these are where neighbouring properties, the representations have been received, and the red Bs are where the bus stops are in vicinity to the site. Next slide, please. So the red line plan of the site shows Roger Asham, and the blue line depicts land within the same ownership. And that's where you've got the Roger Asham Centre, Milton Road School, Castle School, and then you've got the Arbury Road Primary School up here. Next slide, please. So this is the existing floor plans that are currently used for the library service. The changes to the library service have been explained in paragraph 1.2 of the report. Next slide, please. So this is a proposed site layout, and proposed extensions are shown here and here, and that's where the main entrance will be. The proposed photographic area has been moved here. Originally, it was to the rear of the site. It's proposed to be landscaped, and it was moved from the rear in response to concerns from the environmental health officers and neighbours. And this is discussed at paragraph 3.7 of the report. There are 27 parking spaces in total, 2 disabled and 4 staff parking spaces here. Covered cycle parking spaces here, and again this was originally proposed to the rear of the building, but in response to concerns from the environmental health officers and neighbours, the layout was again amended, and this is discussed at 3.3 of the report. The uncovered cycle spaces are here, which they currently are anyway. Bin collection point for refuse vehicles, bin store, 2 metre high fence and gates here, providing restricted access to the rear of the site, and the hatched area of that depicts that no public or visitors can have access to that site, and you will see from draft condition 11 that restricts the use of the rear garden. There is a new hedge proposed along the front boundary of the site, and trees, new trees, replacement trees to the rear. 2 of these are magnolias, and replacement trees at the front. Next slide, please. This shows the proposed floor plans and elevations. And you've got the ceremony room, a ceremony waiting room. You've got an office here. This is the main entrance and reception waiting area. In the original listed building, you've got an interview room, kitchen, toilet facilities, and then there are further interview rooms and storage here. Next slide, please. So this slide shows in blue text and lines showing the alterations to the building. Please note that there are no external alterations proposed for the listed building. However, as stated earlier, the listed building consent is being considered by colleagues at Cambridge City Council, as in the Greater Cambridgeshire Planning Services. Next slide, please. This slide shows the landscape proposals. You've got a 2.4 metre high timber trellis fence shown in pink, just around the sides. You've got proposed climber planting shown in green. There are the replacement trees at the front and at the rear. And again, I say there are 2 replacement magnolias. A hornbeam hedge at the front and feature planting around the pagoda and climbers for the timber trellis area. Planting bed 1 features ornamental planting at the front entrance, and then planting 2, which is also ornamental shrub and herbaceous planting. The plan also shows a typical tree pit detail and enclosed bin store image. Next plan, please. This is a proposed roof plan. So you can see the existing pitched tiled roof for the existing listed building. The grey area shows the existing flat roof part of the building, and the yellow shows the proposed flat roof extensions as a part of the proposals under consideration before you. Next plan, please. Next slide, please. This plan shows the ecological enhancement measures and a position of 2 back boxes, the red stars, and 2 bird boxes with the blue stars. Next slide, please. This is the covered cycle shelter specification sheet. The cycle shelter is approximately 2.14 metres wide, 3.6 metres long, and 2.15 metres high. And it is to be located at the front of the building, but it is tucked away near the bin store, so it won't be as visible with the planting and the hedge from the highway. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is the aerial photo of the area, the existing listed building, flat roof extensions, and the magnolia tree to be removed to facilitate development. Asham Road and Gurney Way. Next slide, please. So this is a view of the northwest of the site from Asham Road. Next slide, please. This is a view of the southeast of the site from Asham Road. Next slide, please. This is a view down from Asham Road, down Asham Road towards Milton Road. Next slide, please. And this is a view of the northern end of Asham Road, the school entrance, and you can see some parking restrictions along this section of the road. Next slide, please. This is a view of Gurney Way from Asham Road Junction. Next slide, please. This is the original listed building at the front, and no changes proposed as explained, or no external changes proposed. Next slide, please. So this is a slide of the original listed building here, and part of the existing single flat roof extension there. This ramp is to be removed as part of the proposals. Next slide, please. This is the main entrance where there'll be a new canopy. Obviously that ramp to be removed. and the proposals include new windows and a canopy to enhance the appearance of the entrance. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the magnolia tree to be removed to facilitate the proposed rear extension. Next slide, please. There might just be another slide at the after this one, thank you. The magnolia in question is about the size of this tree in this picture, and it would require a spade similar to the size of the one in the photo to dig it up if we were wanting to replant it somewhere else in the site. So as you can see, that's quite hefty equipment, and hence why it's been advised in part that the tree was unlikely to survive anyway, but you wouldn't be able to get that kind of vehicle and equipment to the rear of the site without damaging the physical building. Thank you. In conclusion, on the basis that there are no statutory objections to the proposal, that the applicant has made improvements to the design of the proposal to take account of concerns raised during the consultation process, it is recommended by your officers to determine the application in accordance with section 11 of the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dallas. That was an excellent presentation. But members, before we invite public speakers, I'll ask any questions or points of clarifications for Dallas. If you would please use your raise your hand function. We're also joined today by Dr. John Finney, Highways Development Manager Officer, Dean Scrivener, Susan Smith and Vanna Elzine from Greater Cambridgeshire Planning. Also, Environmental Health Officers Adam Finch and Greg Kearney, and Tam Parry from the Transport Assessment Team, who will be able to answer any questions, technical questions that may arise. Welcome to you all. They are here for your on request. Please don't hesitate to use their expertise if you need to. Thanks. So we're now, any questions for officers, please, members?
Councillor Ashwood first, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask Dallas when the photographs of Asham Road were taken?
So the first few photos were ones that I took when I did my site visit when the application first came in, and the ones of the building are the ones provided by the agent that shows to the rear of the site.
It's the ones of the road itself that I'm most interested in, because I was based in that building from 2000 to 2012. When I was working for libraries. I have never ever seen so little traffic around there. It's normally jam-packed with parked cars and vehicles going up and down. And I'm just wondering whether those photos were taken during lockdown when there wouldn't have been the amount of commuter parking and everything else.
Let me just check back, if you bear with me. I'll check back at when I took them.
You want me to come in here, Dallas? I've been trying to get into the site folder for you. It looks like they were taken on the 2nd of June 2020. So that would have been during a lockdown period. It would be after March.
Thank you. I said I know the area well. I still have memories of days when mobile libraries were having to drive round and round and round because they couldn't get enough room to be able to get up either Gurney Way or Asham Road to get into the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashwood. I think it's Councillor Scott next.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just on the issue of parking, I wanted to ask what modifications have been made. My understanding is that the original decision was to have the people go out the back of the building to be photographed, which of course was ultimately recognised as unsuitable. So now there's been a decision, as I understand it, to alter that so that the photographs would be taken in part of the front area. And the acknowledgement is that that will lessen the number of cars, the car parking provision in the site. And this really follows from Councillor Ashwood's concern, because although there now is residents parking only there, the reason that residents wanted to have their own parking was because the residents themselves have a number of cars. But this means that no visitors to the site will be able to park anywhere in the streets. They're going to have to find parking on the site. So what provision is made for that, please?
Okay, just to answer that in part, and then my highways colleagues might want to jump in, or Emma. The highways and parking impact is considered at 9.12 to 9.16 of the report. You'll note at paragraph 9.12 that under the Cambridge City parking standards, 22 parking spaces would be required for the type of use. You will note that in paragraph 9.14 that parking spaces are 27 as a proposal, and this is an over allocation of 5 car parking spaces as set out in the paragraph 9.12. But it should be, and that was purely because they recognised the impact that the parking and the use might have on the area, and that's why it was considered that the 27 parking spaces was suitable for the location.
May I just follow up on that, because it's difficult to see how there can be car parking and how people who've just, for example, become wedded in bliss can actually have their photographs taken without cars in the background. So I'm actually somewhat mystified about that, because I must add that at the present time, I mean, I live near Shire Hall. I see people in wedding groups constantly, not so much with the COVID-19, but of course that's not going to, touch wood, exist forever. And the site that they're currently in is extremely conducive to happiness and really good end or ultimate beginning, I suppose, to wedded bliss. So I'm curious as how to that will fit in. And I do have a second query, which is a very real concern, and I've never ever, I have to emphasise, had this concern with any report from planning before. But I would ask the officers to review their paragraph 1.2. Now, the truth is, and I know this from my investigations and from the fact that staff contacted me, I know that this was not generated by a wish to have more room for the library service. Completely the opposite, because the original proposal was that the library service would be stuck out in one of the park and ride sites with mobile buildings and so on. So that paragraph 2, I really have to say very firmly, I really cannot see 1.2, how it can be written in those terms. And I originally became involved in this, one with the concern about the move from the Shire Hall site, but 2, because the staff were in contact about the concerns that they had. And that was why I appeared at the community and partnerships meeting to raise concerns about where the staff were going. So it wasn't actually related directly to the site, which we're discussing now. It was related to where the staff were going. And in my opinion, and I say it with the hugest regret, paragraph 1.2 does not depict the reality of the situation. And the final point I'll make on this is that it was absolutely evident that when the decision was made to dispose of Shire Hall, no proper research had been undertaken as to where staff would be placed, because that became apparent when it was proposed that the site on Shire Hall site would be moved to Roger Asham, because there'd been nothing done in terms of where the library staff were going. So I do request that that paragraph 1.2 be seriously revised. But to come back to my question about the parking, how, first of all, is parking properly to be accommodated? And two, how are the photographs of people at that site to be accommodated without having cars in the background? Thank you.
Would Dallas or the Highways like to answer Councillor Scott's concerns, please?
I was going to ask if Dan could pull up the PowerPoint again, please, and go to slide 8. And then if any of my colleagues or in Highways or Emma would like to jump in as well.
Please do so.
I'm happy to pick up paragraph 1.2 as well, Chairman.
Next one, please. Or probably the next one, actually. Oh no, go back, that's fine if you want to go. So the proposed photographic area will be here and be surrounded by trellis, and when people leave the ceremony room, they will leave exit from doors approximately here, walk down here, and have their photos taken in this landscaped area, so that it will block out the tree and the cars from either side.
Dallas, please be aware they can't see your cursor because it's not you
sorry.
presenting. So you'll need to
yeah.
just explain where it is on that plan, please.
Okay, I apologise. So where you can see the annotation for the main entrance, if you go to the left, there is an area where the pagoda will be. So that's just north of parking space 21.
Yeah, Dan is now highlighting that area.
Thank you. And that will be landscaped. And if Dan moves the cursor up to where the staff space is, probably just opposite space 3 on the building, and show that's where they would exit from the ceremony room and walk down to the pagoda area for their photos. And obviously the landscaping around the pagoda area will screen from the cars. Thank you.
Okay. Are you sort of happy with that, Councillor Scott? And if so, we can ask Emma to address your concerns over 1.2. So Emma, would you like to come in there, please?
No, sorry. If I could actually just say, no, I'm not happy. And I very much doubt that people getting married would be happy, you know, or joining in a civil ceremony or something. To come out the back and to be squashed into that pagoda area is really, in my opinion, unsatisfactory. But then I would imagine that most people getting married would not be happy with that. But never having engaged in the activity, I mean, I can't speak from personal experience, but I can speak from the experience I have as a counsellor and also as a person who walks past where people are having photographs in the present location, that they're going to be squashed in anyway. That's what the proposal is. Thanks.
Thank you. Emma, would you like to come in now regarding, as I said, 1.2, Councillor Scott's concerns on that?
Yes, if I may, Chairman, I think the first thing that I'd just like to highlight, and I'm sure members will be aware, the wider move and the relocation from Shire Hall is not a material consideration. This is something that's very much different to this planning application. So I'll just draw that distinction first. In relation to paragraph 1.2, that text was actually taken from the committee paper and the minutes to that meeting. So if Councillor Scott disagrees with what was in that paper or what was said at that committee, all we've done is taken that information from the website, from the officer report and from the minutes of that meeting. So I wasn't at that meeting, but I'd be surprised if the officer report or the minutes are incorrect in any way.
If I could just add to that, then that means that, in my opinion, the minutes are incorrect, and that the information that is conveyed in paragraph 1.2 is not correct. And that's an opinion based on knowledge of what was happening at that time, and there would be others who would be similarly acquainted, particularly including the staff. Thank you.
Chairman, can I just quickly add?
Please do.
Please. Yeah, I mean, the comments Councillor Scott noted, but I'd just like to reiterate Emma's comments, really, that ultimately this is a planning application and has to be dealt with according to material considerations in planning terms, and so other decisions of the authority, whilst contentious they may be, and not planning considerations or material considerations in this context. So if all the members could just be aware of that. But the comments are noted.
If I could come back, I'm extremely well aware of that. I do know planning law, thank you very much. But my point is that a report ought to be accurate. And in my opinion, the report is not accurate. I'm very well aware of planning considerations, but I do thank Mr. Lyle and Ms. Fitch for clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move now to Councillor Kinsley. You've got your hand up, please. Start.
Thank you, Chairman. Just carrying on, actually, from Councillor Scott's point, not only will those attendees be crammed up into the photography area, but there'll be heaps of cars going back and forth trying to find a parking space, something which I will come back to later on. But my initial reason for asking to speak was, in fact, a question addressed to Jaspreet, which is this. Why is this application not a sui generis application, or is that what an Article 3 application is? And if it is a sui generis application, does this have an impact on the application of local policies, particularly those relating to parking?
Thank you, Councillor. Firstly, in terms of the type of application, it is a Regulation 3 application. Or the reference to Regulation 3 refers to the fact that it's the council's own land. So you have the Town and Country Planning Act General Regulations 1992, which set out that ultimately applications that are for land that are owned by the council should be dealt with by the council at its own committee. So that's what the Regulation 3 references to. In terms of the sui generis question, do you mean that the planning use, you think it should be, the planning use should be referenced as a sui generis? As in,
I do, because, well, I mean, that's my question, because obviously being a centre for ceremony of particular kinds would sort of indicate that it is a planning application for its specific use. But I mean, you know, maybe not. That's why I'm asking the question.
This use class that they're asking this to be dealt with does currently fall within a use class in the use classes order, so it's not sui generis as such. So as it's class, I think it's class F, but I'd just have to double check that, but it is definitely one of the use classes.
Paragraph 3.1, if I may interject, explains how the uses, because this came in before the changes to the use class as well. So it's approximately half for the register office, which is a class as a B1 use at that point, and half for the ceremony uses, which are D1 use class at that point.
Yeah. It does say that. It does say that in 3.1.
Yep, I've got that. That's useful. Thank you very much. Lovely. So the reason it's not a sui generis use is because it falls into other classes.
Yes.
So therefore, there's no impact on the application of policies from, for example, Cambridge City Council. No, Councillor. Ultimately, if it was the use that was being proposed would be so unique as to not fall within a current use class, then it could be classed as sui generis. But as the councillors explained and officers have explained, it does fall within use class at 3.1. Sorry, close class D, as explained in paragraph 3.1. Thank you.
Right, you're happy with that, Councillor Kindersley? Your questions have been answered. So, Councillor Hunt, next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Am I right in picking up that this is a listed building? And if so, is there anything I've missed? Because I looked at the illustrations, and I couldn't see anything that rather surprised me. I thought there might be something special hidden around the back we hadn't seen the photograph of. Why is it listed? That's the first question. I've got three, but can we do one at a time? What's the reason for listing this existing building?
Okay, it was listed along with the other buildings that were shown on with the red stars because it was part of an open air school for children that had tuberculosis. So in the 1920s. So that's part of. They don't always listed because of what the building looks like, or it's partly because of the use associated with it.
So really, that sort of, although it's still a listed building, the reason why it was listed is not current.
Well, just to explain,
I've made my own interpretation of that, so I'm happy you've explained it. Just as a matter of interest, what percentage of people are now being married in registry offices of the total market? Because every time I go to a wedding, they don't seem to be in a registry office. They seem to be somewhere else. Is there a general move away from registry offices?
I think that's going to be a question, Chairman, that would need to be asked by the applicant. They have brought the head of the service that is in charge of the registration. They can probably answer that better. Yeah. But I think obviously that there aren't any ceremonies taking place at the moment, so she'll be able to answer that better.
Yeah, I'm happy for you to answer that question to Louise Clover when the time comes, Councillor Hunt.
Okay, and are we going to continue to be promoting bats in new buildings when I think the current situation is mainly focused on bats? I mean, I'm surprised we're still encouraging them.
The fact that it's an existing building and with just some proposals to do some modifications and some extensions, the ecology report that was submitted with the application made some recommendations that bird and bat boxes were provided for ecological mitigation and enhancement in the area.
Still promoting bat boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's sufficient. And so my question about the percentages of weddings I'll ask later. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Hartford next, please.
Chair,
sorry, Chairman, can I just ask, are we into debate or are we still?
No, we're not. We're asking. No, we're still asking questions for.
Then I'm
officers.
premature.
Okay,
I'll wait till debate.
Right. Thank you for that, Councillor Hartford. Okay, so no questions. Any more questions for officers?
Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah.
Councillor Ashwood appears to have dropped off the call.
Right.
Which will affect her ability to vote if she's left the room. Can we just hold on for 2 minutes whilst I try and give her a ring?
Yeah, absolutely, please. And then we can find out how much she has actually missed the questions.
Is it going to be long enough to make a cup of tea?
One never knows, Councillor Kindersley, does one?
Well, I'm looking for chairmanship here, Chairman. We've already had bats. Why can't we have tea?
If this carries on like this, we'll have to have something stronger, Councillor Kindersley, I think, although it is a little early.
You know, vodka is not just a breakfast drink.
If I could just come in, I do think that Councillor Ashwood has had problems like this in the past, so she sometimes comes in and out. It must be her connection. If that's helpful, but of course, Dan would know.
So Councillor Ashwood has rejoined. It flashed up on my screen anyway.
Apologies, Chairman, I am now back online, but how long for is another matter altogether.
So just how much have you missed sort of the questions to officers, Councillor Ashwood? How many seconds or minutes have you been off?
I heard Councillor Hunt's first question. He was just about to ask his second. Yeah,
but right, okay. I think at the so you're happy to still continue with the speakers, and you're happy to
yes,
make you're happy to make a decision at the end when we come to voting.
I am, Chairman.
Okay, so that's good then. So I'll just ask, do you want to come back as you've missed missed something? Would you like to come back and ask officers anything before we move on, or are you happy?
I would like to ask something, yes, if you're allowed to allow that.
Well, before we move on then, Councillor Ashwood, you do that then we'll move on to public speakers.
I share Councillor Scott's concerns about the area for photographs and the whole setup there. Knowing the site so well, when I worked there, we had far fewer cars in that car parking area, and it was a nightmare regularly trying to manipulate cars in and out. It is a very tight space. There is also the additional problem of the school next door, the Roger Asham School, which was a pupil referral unit, and I think may still be. And they were well known, the pupils there, for lobbing windfall apples at the building regularly, and that is right adjacent to the area where they are going to be doing the photographs. I really think they need to put more thought into this.
So is this a question to officers, or can this be left to the debate, Councillor Ashwood?
It can be left for the debate.
Right, so thank you for that. So are we all, so members, we've all finished with officers, have we? So now, thank you. We'll move to public speakers. So speaking in support of the application, I'd now like to invite Richard Smith. He's the agent for the applicant, together with Louise Clover, the registration service manager, to address the committee. You have 5 minutes. Thank you. So please feel free to do so when you're able to. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of the application. I'm Richard Smith, the planning consultant for this project, and with me today is Louise Clover, the registration service manager, who's also available to answer any questions you may have regarding the proposed operation of the site. This application is to provide a new register office and ceremony room within Cambridge following its move from Castle Lodge at Shah Hall. The application was submitted last year, and we've worked closely with the planning officers at the County Council and at the City to provide this facility and to address concerns raised during the processing of this application. We believe the site is suitable for the proposed use in planning terms, as the site is located in a sustainable location in Cambridge, in a mixed-use area. It also reuses an existing listed building and will provide public access, and the site can accommodate the parking requirements for the proposed use. The proposed extension to the building and alterations to the site layout have been carefully designed to protect the fabric of the listed building and to respect its setting. We've also sought to protect the residential amenity of neighbouring properties by relocating the outdoor photo area to the northwest of the building to prevent noise and disturbance to neighbours. That was in response to the Environmental Health Officer's comments and neighbour concerns. Therefore, we believe the proposed use of the building would be acceptable in this location, and we would hope that you will support your officer's recommendation of approval. We are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Right, thank you for that. So any members, any questions for Richard or even Louise, although she didn't obviously speak, so I think Councillor Hunt, you've got one. So if you'd like to kick the ball rolling.
Thank you, Chair. My question would be, has the applicant got any idea of what percentage of people who are getting married use registry offices? My anecdotal feeling is that it's a declining percentage, but I have no figures, and I wondered if you could give me a sort of fag packet figure.
Yeah, probably makes sense if I answer that one. So thank you, Councillor Hunt. In a normal year across Cambridgeshire, we conduct roughly 2,000 civil ceremonies, and that's a combination of our own premises and obviously the approved venues that we work with in partnership, so hotels, colleges, etc. Of those, roughly 50% do take place in our council premises. And in an average year in Cambridge, the numbers would vary between 750 to 1,000, but it obviously does vary, and that is spread over a whole year.
And may I, is that a declining amount, or what's the movement there? Are more people going out to other locations or less people going out to other locations?
I think, being honest, the picture's changed completely given what's going on in the world at the moment. Prior to the pandemic, we were certainly seeing lots of people getting married in approved venues, and that was increasing, but obviously we deliver that service too. However, I think given what's happened in the past year or so, we're seeing an increase back again to people who want to have a council ceremony and then perhaps go on to have their celebrations in their gardens or village halls or somewhere like that. So I think that the picture is changing quite radically at the moment. I would fully anticipate demand being roughly the same sorts of levels for the next few years at least.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt, for that. Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you. I think probably a question also for Louise, which is how much does it cost to get married?
It depends. If you're just asking about the fees we charge, is that correct?
I'm just asking about the charges rather than the sheer emotional pain.
Yeah, or the cost of the dress. So a statutory ceremony, which is just the couple and 2 witnesses in a working office, is offered twice a week, and that's a statutory fee of £46. That is currently being reviewed by the Treasury because it's widely acknowledged that does not cover the cost of service delivery. Right through to our council ceremony rooms, we have a set fee depending on day of the week. I must admit I'm remiss, I don't have the fees off the top of my head. They are all on the website, but it ranges up to about £580 on a Saturday.
Councillor Kindersley, are you happy with that?
He's got his thumb up.
Is he? Oh, that's very good then. So I can't see any more questions for Richard or Louise. Dan, can you see any more?
Councillor Scott, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Scott. Sorry, Councillor Scott, nearly missed you. Please carry on.
Thank you. If I could just ask this question, because you must, if I can, Louise Clover, looked into the parking issue. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. I've just forgotten the parking. Residents parking applies Monday to Friday, and it doesn't apply the Saturday and the Sunday. Is that correct? It's a while ago that we, so that how, I know that you have ceremonies during the course of the week, but is Saturday a more popular day for ceremonies, number one? And number two, if I can just comment, I know that you are still having ceremonies, aren't you, despite the COVID-19 problem? Because when I come past, I see sometimes people lined up, and you've organised it so that there's entry and exit and so forth. And I did see people having a photograph taken on the mound, actually. So congratulations for keeping the service going. That's my point here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the question about what's popular days, if about 2 years ago, yes, it very much would have been about Saturdays, but what we're seeing more and more is a shift into Thursdays, Fridays. We obviously have looked at the parking and noted the concerns, not just about the parking spaces, but also the impact on the school and traffic around school times as well. So what we already did over a year ago, as we started to look at this site as a potential, was actually change our appointment lengths for ceremonies, and we've actually made them longer. So whereas it used to be half an hour, that's now 45 minutes. And what that does is allow ample time for a couple and their guests to arrive. to go through the process of having the ceremony, to go out and have some photos, and then mostly leave the site before the next wedding party is arriving. So we've looked very closely at the number of cars that tend to arrive. People tend to travel in families, so it's not like it's 60 people in 60 cars trying to get on site. And we do give very clear directions about where people can and cannot park, and about the access of public transport to get to the site, which obviously if you live in Cambridge is something that people are quite keen to do quite often. So we've looked at the numbers of spaces that are required and do feel that it's sufficient, but obviously that will be monitored as always once we occupy.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Scott?
Sorry, you're on mute, Councillor Scott.
Pardon, thank you. I suppose it's a bit late. I mean, I applaud monitoring if the site is taken over by this purpose, but in a way it's a bit late, that if the problems arise after the decision's made, then they really can't be dealt with, can they, fairly? But anyway, thank you.
Councillor Ashwood.
Thank you, Chair. My question actually, or comment, is about public transport access to the site, because much is made in the report about the number of buses that run in the vicinity. There are two major flaws in that. The park and ride does not stop anywhere along Milton Road, neither does the busway. Park and ride will stop there after 6:30 in the evening, which means there is only really the service 9, which is infrequent. And the alternative then is the bus stop in Gilbert Road, which is a 7 or 8 minute walk, dressed in your wedding finery, possibly not the best approach.
Right. In response to that, I'll just say that, obviously it is a site within Cambridge. We will be looking at all means that people can get to that site by walking, cycling routes, and sort of public transport, as you say, bus routes. There's also a travel plan which is being prepared as part of the planning application, so that we're looking at means to try and encourage people to the site in that by sustainable modes of travel. Other than that, as Louise mentioned, that most people that come to ceremonies where they are coming, they tend to car share if you're in a couple or a family. So it's going to try and we'll be looking at ways to reduce the number of vehicles that will need to come to the site. And we feel that the level of parking provision that we provided, which is there's 27 spaces on there, obviously 4 are for staff, but we've still got 23 spaces within the site, which will accommodate those people that will need to access the ceremonies. And the ceremonies do vary in size. We're talking about maximum sizes. There are a lot of ceremonies which they'll be limited in numbers. Some civil partnerships, I think we're looking to just 2 and witnesses. So it's not going to be every wedding ceremony is going to have a large amount of vehicles attending.
Can I come back, Chair?
Of course you can, Councillor Ashwood.
Thank you. It's not accessible by public transport if the information given about the public transport is blatantly incorrect. Public transport links to there. I know I didn't run a car. I don't run a car. I used to get there on public transport. It is appalling.
Do you want to come back, Richard, on that, or?
I can only say, I mean, we've looked at the site. We've looked at various sites when they're, in terms of looking at the best location for this use, and it needed to be within Cambridge, and this came up as a good location for it. In terms of, we've mentioned what bus services are available. Yes, as you say, not all of them are direct to the site, but with this facility, it's not. There's potential for future bus routes to come through this way. I mean, it's one means is by the bus. There are other modes of sustainable travel to the site which people can choose to use. And as I say, there's other means in terms of car sharing which will reduce numbers down.
And if I may come in, Chair, just to add to that, we actually looked at 43 different sites before whittling down to this one. And obviously many of them had their own challenges. And this ultimately is the best location. We did look at county council owned sites, partner sites and commercial assets in doing so. So whilst it doesn't tick every box in the way that we would perhaps like it to, it is the best option to serve the people of Cambridge.
So you've done due diligence then, haven't you? So thank you very much for that. So you're happy, Councillor Ashwood, as you can be, or do you want to come back, or are you happy?
Just to say that if that is the best of the sites they've been able to come up with, it concerns me what the others must have been like. I got married at Shire Hall nearly 50 years ago. There's no way I would want to be married in that site.
Okay. So, Councillor Scott, you've indicated that you, by putting your thumb up, that you want to speak again. So, is that the case?
Yes, if I may, thank you.
Of course.
Good. I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Ashwood for raising the issue about the transport, and also to make, look, honestly, you know, I've never ever with this planning committee been in this situation before. What Councillor Ashwood said about the contention as to public transport is absolutely correct, because what that plan shows are the 2 bus stops that, yes, they are on Milton Road, but no buses will be stopping at those bus stops, as Councillor Ashwood pointed out, apart from the number 9, which is remote. Now, I really must make this point. I've never, ever been in a position with the planning committee where I've had to be so critical of a report. And it is, in my opinion, really remiss of the report to be framed in the way it is.
Sorry to interject, Councillor Scott. Surely, is this to officers, or can this be put into the debate? Because with a debate,
it's not a debate. It's not a question of debate. It is to the officers. I really have always applauded the officers, absolutely, in the work that you've done. But you see, even, I'm sorry, Richard Smith, but you said, I've forgotten the exact terms that you used, but none of these bus stops, none of the bus transport is close to that site. The only one that is the number 1, the Arbury bus, which comes up, as Councillor Ashwood pointed out, Gilbert Road. So I really am concerned about the way this project's been put forward. And that is really to the officers, because they're the ones that are putting it forward. And as I say, I'm always so supportive of the officers in planning and the work that you do. On this project, I really have to say, it's of a concern. Now, the other point is, and I know that it's not the officers' fault here, but it is absolute indication. I mean, Louise, Clover, as you've pointed out, there were numerous sites looked at, and it's further evidence that no proper research was being done into the closing down of Shire Hall. Nothing. Thank you.
Right. So, Emma, you've indicated that you want to come in. Is that the case?
Yes, if I may, Chairman. I think if we deal with the report first, and then I'll come back and I'll see if Tam Parry wants to come in from a transport assessment side of things as well, because I can say what we did as planning officers, and I'm sure Tam will want to come in from a transport assessment perspective, because his colleagues did a lot of work, and this application's been in for a long time, so it's not something that's been done quickly, and it hasn't been assessed.
I'm happy with that, Emma.
So if I start with paragraph 1.2, because I know that's one of the concerns that's raised. While we've been in this meeting, I've gone into the report that was taken to the Communities in Partnership, and I've looked at precisely where we've pulled that information from within the report, and in particular the location and the chosen location. And that's, again, just to give the background. So it's not part of the planning assessment. It's purely the background as to why this has come forward. In paragraph 2.3.5 of that report, it refers to a meeting on the 23rd of June in 2020 by the Commercial and Investments Committee, where they approved the purchase of that new building at the Lakes Business Park in St Ives. And that explains why that property was chosen, why that was seen as the best for the library service. So I'd just like to say that planning officers are not making any comment one way or the other about what was chosen and where it's from. We've just taken that information from the report. We've explained what that report went into. So I'm content that that has been based on that officer report and taking account of the Commercial and Investment Committee decision as well. So that I'm assured of. Also, when it came to the bus routes, that's something else that I had a look at. And in particular, I was looking at what one of the residents has raised about the park and ride route. And in particular, what I noticed is the route into the city on the park and ride service comes in one way and actually comes out on a separate route. So I've looked at those stops and then I'll hand over to Tam Parry, because I know it was an assessment that his team did. And just lastly, just to cover something, a comment I think that was said, I think it was by Councillor Scott, about once a decision is made, nothing can be done. I would just draw members' attention to condition 17 on the travel plan. And again, something else that has come as a result of the work that the transport assessment team has done, and looking at how we can ensure that this development doesn't have an impact on those surrounding streets. We know that they're controlled during the week, as Councillor Scott has noted, but we're also particularly interested to make sure that there isn't an impact when we come to the Saturdays. So Tam, if I can hand over to you now, in particular to the bus routes.
Yes, thank you, Emma. And just to note, the work that my colleagues have done on the application is to review the amount of car parking and what the applicants said about the car parking for the sites, and also the obviously we've looked into the public transport provision too. For the public transport provision, my colleagues have noted that there's guided busway and park and ride stop nearby. So I don't know quite which bus stop they were referring to, but it is if that wasn't quite right, then it is kind of not unusual for bus stops to be added to routes, and so it's not impossible to seek a bus stop in the area to also include the park and ride services and guided busway services, should that be required. With regards to the parking, the transport statement prepared for the application notes that the site would require 30 spaces to not result in any overspill parking into the surrounding residential streets. And you noted earlier that there's 27 parking spaces provided, of which 4 are for the staff and the remaining 23 for the participants in the ceremonies. You also note that the ceremony's length has been extended to enable a longer time for each of the ceremonies, and therefore for the turnaround periods to be longer, and the reduction, this reduces the extent of any doubling up of people parking who are just about to leave a ceremony, but also those who are seeking to arrive for the next ceremony. So these measures, as well as the travel plan measures, which will monitor parking within the Asham Road area on Saturdays through the next 5 years, and should there be any increase in parking, then we've asked that the applicant would pay for the consultation for local residents to ask them whether or not they consider an extension of the CPZ to include Saturdays is required. So that may or may not be required in the future. It's something that we sought.
And if I can just come back in again, Chairman, if I may, I can tell you that I actually looked up the bus timetables myself, and I looked at where the bus stops were. I realise we're in a period of COVID, and actually the park and ride bus services have actually been stopped since Sunday. But I'm content that what was assessed by the transport assessment team was coming up on those bus timetables by Stagecoach. So I didn't just take what the applicant had said without reviewing it. And I know that Tam's colleague would have done the same.
Yeah, thank you, Emma.
Yeah, thank you, Tam, for clarifying the relevant points. But we've got Councillor Ashwood next then, and then followed by Councillor Hunt. So Councillor Ashwood, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry to keep belabouring the public transport point, but it is important. I also checked the bus timetables yesterday. The park and ride, the guided park and ride does not stop on that section of Milton Road until after 6:30 in the evening. And the busway, as you say, only uses it in one direction. That doesn't stop there either. And that is the current timetables as of last night.
Right. So, Councillor Hunt.
Yes, Chair, I was going to ask your permission to perhaps close my camera down. I'm having...
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm having it sort of slightly unstable verbal, and
yeah.
I will be here, but I think if I close my camera down, I'll get better verbal reception.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, Councillor Hunt.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got Councillor Scott next.
Yes, I just want to make clear that I'm not contesting that the bus stops are there. Yes, the bus stops are there, but it's whether the bus is stopping at the bus stop. We can have a bus stop with certain buses stopping, but if the buses are not stopping at adequate times, or if they're actually not stopping at the bus stops, then it isn't fair to put in bus stops in the plan as if buses are stopping there, which can be used by people going to the site. So thank you. I'm just not disputing there are bus stops there. There are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a slightly technical question. I think it's probably for Louise. Reading the report, there will be 4 parking spaces for staff, but
yeah.
The implication is that will be upwards of 33 full-time equivalents across the service. Okay, let me just finish and then. So there'll be 33 full-time equivalents across the service. Now, my understanding is that obviously, first of all, people are rostered, so all 33 are very unlikely to be in the building all at once. But there is a question which I'm leading to, which is about whether it is practical for registrars to use public transport, regardless of whether it exists or not in any meaningful sense. Because my understanding is quite often they're in the registry office in order to then go out to an approved venue to perform a marriage ceremony. So they may be just picking up paper or whatever, but they will be in their finery, will they not?
Okay, so just picking up on the point about numbers there, yes, unfortunately, there does appear to be an error in 3.2 of the report, which does seem to imply that there'll be lots of people on site at once. I can confirm that's definitely not the case. You're quite right. Most of our staff that will be there sort of working all day there is normally going to average around 6 or 7 staff, and quite a few of those car share. In terms of coming in and out, that's our ceremony officers that you're referring to. And you're quite right, they pop in, as it were, they get the paperwork and off they go again. That does tend to be primarily at weekends. There obviously is some work in the week, but again, we've taken that into account when we've looked at the numbers of spaces available. And obviously on a weekend when they're coming in, there's nobody else in the building at all, it's just them. So at those particularly busy, larger weddings, we're quite content that the two offset each other. So, you know, based on what we know today, then we're confident that the numbers of spaces are sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I can't see any more hands up at all for officers at all. So thank you very much, for Richard and Tam and Louise for answering members' questions. So I will now turn to the debate. Once again, if you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand. So members were in debate. So who would like to kick this off? Councillor Kindersley, have you still got your hand up? Are you wishing to kick the debate off?
I was, yes, thank you, Chairman.
Well done then, carry on, sir.
Okay. So, Chairman, first of all, I'd like to say a big thank you for Officer's report, which is very thorough, and obviously a great deal of time has been put into this, and you know, that is to be applauded. But from my perspective, I'm afraid to say that this is the wrong place for this purpose. And there are lots of different things that I really don't like about this application, and some of them are relatively minor, such as the removal of the magnolia tree. but some of them are significant. And my sort of concern about it is that at the end of this speech, I'm going to have to make a decision about whether to support this application or not, understanding that all of the concerns that I'm about to raise are not supported by an officer objection. But I think we do have to be realistic, and we have to understand that this is a very residential area. We have to understand that weddings are drawing people in from a wide area, and that public transport effectively does not exist in this area. And it certainly doesn't exist in connection to, I mean, I know Louise referred to a site which is for the people of Cambridge, but my experience actually is that it's the site, you know, Shire Hall was a site for the people of Cambridgeshire to come and get married. So people are coming from far and wide. And if you're coming from Cottenham, or if you're coming from March, or if you're coming from Littleport, you know, realistically, how are you going to get to this site unless you use private car? And I understand that people will car share and so on and so forth, and families coming together, and that's all very straightforward. But weddings tend to be events at which people come from enormously disparate places. And so I think we are being completely and totally unrealistic by saying that there is sufficient car parking space provided, not only for one wedding, but we are in a situation potentially where there are ceremony following ceremony, and there will be, of course, you know, officers in and out, there will be, and so on and so forth. So you have people arriving early because they don't know how long it's going to take in the traffic, and from Littleport or from March or wherever. They're arriving early. You then have, you know, weddings which are supposed to be a moment of great joy, and so people are chatting, and therefore there is a delay potential. You've got people trying to get out for photographs. This is not simply making sausages. This is some event in people's lives which is of very, very considerable significance, and it just isn't realistic to think that you can shove them all in, have the ceremony, shove them all out, and that the next lot will be coming in, you know, as it were, by clockwork. People do not work like that. In addition to which, I mentioned before the issue around the photography. You know, people looking for somewhere to park are going to be driving down through groups of people who've just come out of a wedding, through groups of people who are just about to go. You know, it's going to be absolutely chaos. And we are deluding ourselves if we think it is going to be any different. So I have very considerable concerns about that. Secondly, I have very considerable concerns about, as it were, the appropriateness of this building for such important ceremonies. You know, this is just a bog standard office in a residential part of Cambridge. I appreciate part of it is listed, and I think Councillor Hunt adverted to that earlier. But, you know, this is not somewhere that a bride and groom, or a groom and groom, or bride and bride are going to be enthusiastic about, particularly once they realise the limitations on parking. And the reason that I am drawing attention to this is that at the moment, the wedding business for Cambridgeshire County Council makes the council money. And that's why I inquired about the costs of how. So you've got a wedding on Saturday that is likely to be earning upwards of £500, £600 for the council. I should also mention, obviously, that in terms of ceremonies, whether they are held here or whether they're held at an approved venue, Cambridgeshire County Council has a monopoly, a state monopoly. And it seems to me that we are missing such an enormous business opportunity as a council to make the most of that. If I have an alternative, for example, the lovely gracious Guildhall just down the road, which am I likely to go for? And I just think it is such a shame that we are not looking at such a much more significant place where people will be undertaking such a significant event in their lives. You know, it's very sad, I think, that you know, if I'm a bride and a groom and I turn up and I see that place for the first time, no matter what, you know, my heart is going to sink and I'm going to go, oh really? Despite all of the very best efforts, I do understand of people, you know, who've tried to make the most of what is just not a suitable site. Another very small issue, the trellis is going to be 2.4 meters high. It's going to look bonkers, isn't it? It's going to blow over in the first high storm that we get. And I appreciate the point that Councillor, I think, Scott or Ashwood made, which is, you know, this is largely to prevent ingress from adjacent sites. I mean, that itself highlights the unsuitability of this venue. And lastly, I would just, on behalf of the residents who have written into, we haven't mentioned this at all, but a number of residents have made the point, A, that this is the wrong place, and B, about the impact on their residential amenity. There's going to be traffic up and down that road constantly. It's going to be people coming to the venue, and it's going to be people trying to find somewhere to park. And as I said before, it's going to be mayhem. And we need to recognize that, because a bride arriving late is traditional, but arriving so late that she's missed her slot because she couldn't find anywhere to park is going to cause, you know, considerable heartache to them. And it's going to be a considerable problem for us as a county council providing a registration service. I really would urge officers to have another think about this. It does not seem to me sensible where we've got the police moving out of Cambridge city centre because of all of the problems associated with traffic and so on and so forth. You know, why are we making a rod for our own backs for years to come? So I don't know how I'm going to vote on this, and I may just abstain, but I would be, if I thought I would get a seconder for this to be deferred, then I would propose deferral, because I think there are just too many profound issues that need addressing further. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, can I just address the committee on one point, please? Chair, you're on mute.
Yes, you carry on, please do.
Yeah, I've no wish to stifle debate, and a great many of the points raised by Councillor Kinnersley are reasonable for yourselves to discuss. But I just want to make one point clear. The reference to the local authority's ability to make money from its business as a registrar,
not material,
not a relevant consideration in planning terms. But
absolutely,
that's the only point. Of all the rest of them are up for debate, obviously based on whatever you think you want to give weight to. Thank you.
Point taken.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So after that, Councillor Kinnersley, you finished. Obviously, Councillor Hartford's next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Kinnersley has said exactly what I was going to say. All I will say in addition to what he said is that at least now people have a choice, and if the desirability of this site or the lack of desirability of this site is such, we will see it reflected in them making a choice to go elsewhere. Like Councillor Kinnersley, I find this incredibly difficult to decide on which way to vote, because my heart, which is influenced by those residents who have contacted me in the past about this proposal, my heart is, this is just not the right place. This is just not a good decision. But at the end of the day, with my planning head on, I look at it and I say, there are no statutory consultee objections, and our duty is simply to look at what we're being asked to do, which is to look at a change of use. And so I think that regrettably, I'm going to support this application, but it is with a very heavy heart. I think that this has not been a well thought through decision. Thank you.
I'd just like to come in there, Councillor Hartford, before I get Councillor Gardner. You're absolutely right what you say. We have no statutory consultees against this, and we must possibly go with that. So after that, I'm going to say Councillor Gardner was next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, my comment really is from the officers that I've heard today, I can see that they have had a lot of thought as to where this should go within Cambridgeshire, and I have confidence in them in that they have decided this site suits their needs adequately. If it is, as Councillor Kindersley said, well, what about the bride when she arrives? I'm sure we could make one parking space allocated for the bride so that she always has a parking space as and when she arrives, but I'm sure the officer will make that decision once they see how the things go. With regard to photographs and what have you, the happy couple do not have to have their photographs taken at this particular site if they do not wish so. They might prefer to have it taken at where they're going to have their reception or wherever. People don't always have photographs taken at the actual site. So, you know, I don't see that really that is an issue. Again, we have provided somewhere where they can have photographs taken if they so wish, or they can go somewhere else within Cambridge itself to have photographs or at their reception. So I think we're doing everything we possibly can. And for that reason, Chairman, I am quite happy to propose this application and, you know, for approval. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Gardner. We're still in debate, of course, but we've got Councillor Scott next. So, Councillor Scott, we're up to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the issue of I want to come to other points, but to the issue of the photographs, it's clear that this is being recognised by the officers as a significant issue, because the original proposal was that people would go out the back where the magnolia tree was, and there are objections to that from the neighbours, and so therefore it was changed around to this squashing in at the side under the pergola. So there is a recognition by the officers that the photographic opportunity is not insignificant, and I would acknowledge that, because I know what happens at Shire Hall in terms of the photographic desire of people to have it done on the spot. They've just been married and they actually want to have their photographs just at that instant, and they may well have their photographs at a reception. I mean, I understand that's a tradition also, but the point is they want photographs just after they've been married. But I want to come to the point about the traffic and the parking, and they are issues, and the amenity. It's clear to me that despite, and I accept the officers have done everything that they can, and I do applaud that, and the officers must not misunderstand my criticism of parts of the report. I understand absolutely the officers have done the best they can, but the public transport is not readily available, and if available at all, number one. The parking provision, in my estimation, is not sufficient and will create the problems that have been raised both Councillor Kindersley and Councillor Ashwood. The amenity. I mean, as has been emphasised by Councillor Kindersley, this is a residential area, and having people coming to be married in this spot in this way is not consistent with the amenity of the area. There's also been no mention whatsoever of the school next door. Well, there was some reference, beg your pardon. I know that in the report there is reference to the fact that there are schools there, but if you've got school children coming out, as they will be in Milton Road, with the noise that they make, and we all think children are lovely at school, they make an incredible noise, but this noise will be going on while these wedding ceremonies and people are trying to have their photograph taken and so forth. So that's Milton Road School, and then there's the Castle Special School, and then there's the school right next door to this proposed site. So there hasn't been any mention as to how that noise from the school children will be addressed. And I know from somebody in the area that doesn't approve of school children making noise, or infants, because there's actually an infants, what do you call it, a nursery not far down on Milton Road as well. So really, for all those reasons, it seems to me impossible to properly support this proposal on planning grounds. And for the people of Cambridgeshire, they have somewhere that they should be able to be married in a way that's conducive to this important occasion. And to come back to Councillor Hunt's point, I can't see that people are going to stop being married in registry offices. This has been a trend, and it's a trend that's certainly not going away. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Councillor Scott. We've got Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I must say I was spellbound by Councillor Kindersley, who spelt out a wonderful case, and I came to this meeting as I should do, with an open mind, and all what he's managed to, no, I won't say all, he's managed to fill me with complete indecision. And I don't know which way to go. I'm taking in all the, I mean, I take it that most members of the public only have about one contact with a county council in their lives, and if it does, it should be a good one. And if it's birth, deaths, and marriages, the clients only have experience of one of those 3 meetings, because it's someone else doing it for them if they're born or they've died. So it seems to me one of these cases where perhaps it's not bad enough to turn down, which is not a very nice way to carry on a business. And I do think that the majority of people will come to a wedding by car. And as one of my colleagues has said, realistically, they come from perhaps Littleport or even, you know, outside the county. People come to weddings from all over the place, and therefore the chances are, even if it was at Shire Hall, they would actually come in a car. So we have to take into account that. I don't know what to do. I've got to make a decision on planning reasons only. And therefore, I don't know if there's a good planning reasons to say no. However, I just wish officers, if we do agree to it today, really look at making this place lovely and do the very best job. You know, weddings are a happy occasion. And as someone has said, you don't want them next to a fence that's been blown down and then a bit of litter from the school wafting over the place. You know, the Guildhall is significant, and the Guildhall has some prestige. I don't think there's enough planning reasons for me to vote against this, but I'm not happy, I'm not convinced, and I think a much better job could be done. I was excited when I read that it was a listed building and thought, oh, well, maybe somewhere there's some nice Victorian civic building. Well, there isn't. And it's not a very nice building, and I think it's going to be difficult to make it into one. Anyway, I think I've got to look at planning reasons, but it's with a very heavy heart. If I do vote in favour of it, is with a very heavy heart. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hunt, for those very relevant points. But we'll have Councillor Ashwood next. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have to agree with everything Councillor Kindersley and Councillor Hunt said. It's so difficult because it isn't suitable for the purpose we're planning on using it. And I would say if Councillor Kindersley wants to call for a deferral, I would be more than happy to second it, because I can't vote against this on planning grounds, but I'm not sure I can vote for it either. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can see no other hands for the debating process. So members, Please can I have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation as set out in the report that planning permission to be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 11.1. So now I'll go to each committee member in turn. If they agree with this recommendation set out in the report as I suggested, please unmute your microphone obviously to respond. So Councillor Ashwood, you're first.
I abstain.
So can I just interrupt, Chair? Do you have a seconder for your motion?
I'll second.
Yeah. So Councillor Ashwood, we'll go back to the vote. Councillor Ashwood, she's abstaining. So Councillor Gardner.
Sorry, Chairman, I forgot to unmute myself. Approve.
Yeah. Councillor Hartford.
Approve with a very heavy heart.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Hunt.
Well, I'm with Councillor Hartford. I really am very unhappy, but I can't find a planning reason. But every other reason, I approve.
Okay, thank you for Councillor Hunt. Councillor Kinsley.
I'm going to abstain, Chairman. I'm sorry to say it's the first time I've ever done it, and I regret it, but I can't support it, I'm afraid.
Absolutely your decision, of course. Councillor Scott.
Actually, I'm going to vote against it, and I'm doing that on a planning ground, namely the issue of amenity and the issue of the parking and the transport. And I do that recognising that the officers all approved of it, but they did that, in my opinion, on the basis of a transport report that placed bus stops in the proper place, but where buses will not stop. And on that basis, it seems to me appropriate in planning terms that I vote against, and I will, and I do. Thank you.
And you have. So right, Councillor Gowing.
I approve.
Yeah, and lastly myself, there's no planning grounds where that I can go against this on. I have really sympathies for Councillor Kindersley and Ashwood and of course Councillor Hunt, but I'm going to, and obviously Councillor Hartford, but I am going to go for approve. Thank you. So would Democratic Services report the outcome of the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. That's 5 votes in favour, 1 against, and 2 abstentions. Therefore, planning permission is approved.
Yeah, just to reiterate, that application has been approved. Thank you very much for members for that really, really healthy debate and everything else that went with it. So we'll move on now to agenda item number 5. It's the Cambridge Professional Development Centre, Foster Road, Cambridge. So now could I invite Jane Stanley to introduce the report, please? So when you're ready, Jane, thank you.
Chairman, I wonder, sorry, before you...
Sorry.
Whether we might not have a 3-minute comfort break.
Well, we can. It's 11:44, so we can do better than that. We can have 5 minutes. So, if you like, so you can put your kettle on, Councillor Kindersley, if you wish.
That would be a joy for me. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, so we'll go back at 11:50. Thank you very much. Dan, are we all back yet? Being conscious of the time.
Yes, we are, Chair.
Righty ho then. Yeah. So I'll. Okay. Are we ready to start, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Righty ho. We'll go. Right. So I'll just reiterate then what we're going to make the decision on today. Agenda number 5. Cambridge Professional Development Centre, Foster Road, Cambridge. And just now like to invite Jane Stanley to make her presentation. Please introduce the report. Thank you, Jane. So when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just try and get the screen.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you. The application description is change of use of the Cambridge Professional Development Centre from education training use, which is Class D1 use, that's a former Class D1 use, to office use with ancillary meeting rooms, installation of a modular office building, both B class to B1 use class for a temporary period of up to 5 years, and provision of cycle stores. So the application basically is to change the use of the existing Cambridge Professional Development Centre, which is used for training purposes, to office use for county council staff. The site is within the top corner of this photo, and this shows an overview of the relationship of the site with the surrounding road network. Here you've got Foster Road, which links around here. You've got Paget Close coming around here, which linked to Anstey Way through to Trumpington High Street. You've got Maris Lane coming off here, which is also referred to in the report. And we've also got the busway through here. And I think those are the main functions. You've got Trumpington Park and Ride up here, the main M11 junction, just to orientate yourself. You've also got the community centre in the middle here at Trumpington. It's been mentioned that there's a lot of footfall traffic for cycle and pedestrians across and through this area, the busway and linking to the high street. So this slide takes you in to the application centre. You've got Forset Primary School here to the north, the application site's edged red, and that's 0.97 hectares. The overall site, including the land edge blue, is 1.49, and that's the extent of the existing site area that's used for the training centre. Most of this blue land here is a grassed area, and there's also a public footpath going through it. You can see here the relationship between the blue edge, the conservation area here, which is to the far side of the building. This is the existing building. There are no fenestration changes proposed. It's a change of use in relation to this building, and also a proposal to erect a modular office in this location here. There's a public footpath running through the site, which crosses the access to the site. This is a proposed site plan. There are already 51 car parking spaces on the site, mainly in this location here, and also to this side here. There's 3 disability spaces shown here. This is the proposed location for the mobile modular unit, just in front of the western side of the building here, the far western side of it. There's a proposed relocation of an existing cycle shelter here, proposed new cycle shelters to provide 48 spaces, and a proposed waste recycling area. On this drawing, there are shown proposed bat and bird boxes, which are not recommended in a condition because the overall application is seeking a time limit, a temporary permission of up to 5 years. This is the overall floor proposal plan for the main building. This is the ground floor to the bottom of the picture. And we have here to the side the first floor, which fits over this central area here. You can see the staircase there overlapping the staircase there. You can see on this proposal a layout of desks and in various formations, breakout areas such as this, and also meeting rooms, and small meeting rooms and larger meeting rooms throughout the accommodation. This is a proposed elevation for the modular building. The windows on this elevation would face towards the nearest residents, which are within Monkswell and form part of Ely Place and Salisbury Place. I'll just go back quickly just to show you the relationship with that on this overall drawing. These are the residential properties that we're talking about here, and the mobile modular unit would go in there. So one of the conditions within the recommendation would be to obscure glaze the smaller windows in this elevation to prevent people standing within sink areas and having a view out towards the neighbouring properties. The photographs that are following will actually show you the relationship between those. This is the layout within the building. It would accommodate 20 desk spaces proposed, and also 2 breakout areas. And here you have the sink areas near the smaller windows. We have a photograph looking down from the site entrance back towards Foster Road, and here you have Paget Close coming off to this side here. Paget Road, sorry. This is the entrance to the site, and you can see the pedestrian crossing that goes across the access on the footpath. And again, another view of it, and you can see the distance, properties in the distance to the far eastern side. This is the approach into the site. The vehicular access comes through here, and you have the existing building in the far view with the existing car parking space in front of it. Historically, there is some grasscrete in here, and there has been some overspill parking on this grassed area to the front. On the front of the building, this is the existing cycle shelter that's proposed to be relocated, and you have a view looking towards the residential properties that are part of Monkswell. Here you have part of the existing car park area, and also it looks towards the proposed location for the modular building. This gives a more closer view of where the modular building would be proposed, and you can see the relationship between that and the residential properties beyond what is approximately 1.8 metre fence and some limited vegetation along the boundary. There are some specimen trees within the site. this is another close-up view of that boundary from the footpath on the site, looking towards Foster Road down in this direction here. Beyond the site, we have looking to Fawcett School to the right here, and the footpath that goes on facing north towards Alpha Terrace. I'll take you back to the plan to explain some more of the relationships, some of the plan forms. Here, sorry about that, I'll take you back to that one. Here we have the footpath that goes across from Paget Road and provides a link through to beyond and the busway. In the recommended conditions, there's a recommended condition that there be an improvement of tactile paving at this footpath crossing. There's also a recommendation of look left and look right signs at Maris Lane. There are 51 car parking spaces on the site at the moment, and there are no proposals to increase those, and that relates to the formal proposals. Sorry, I just need to take you down to that one. The gross floor space on the building is 1,534 square metres on 2 floors, and there's a proposal to site 144 desks in the building itself. In total, that would mean 164 desk spaces and spaces for 73 people in meeting rooms. It's proposed to face 260 staff moving from Babbage House and Shire Hall, and they would be based in the building and expected to operate an agile working policy. They wouldn't all be expected to be in the building at the same time. The maximum occupancy rate for the building is expected to be 164. The initial travel plan is based upon that and upon several teams being proposed to move into the building. For example, Cambridgeshire Special Educational Needs and Disability Service, Youth Services and Youth Offending teams, and the South Cambridgeshire Children's team and others. The projected increase in vehicular movements to and from the site would be 38 movements during the AM peak and a decrease within the PM peak of 8 vehicular movements. There are no statutory objections to this application, and it is brought to committee at the request of the divisional member. I'll just take you through those slides once more to ask you if you have any questions. Thank you. The recommendation is that permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 11.1 of the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, for your excellent report there. Members, before we invite our public speakers, can I ask you if there are any questions or points of clarification for Jane? If you do, please raise your virtual hand function. We are also joined by Hannah Seymour-Shove from the Transport Assessment Team and Dr. John Finney, Highways Development Manager Officer, who will be able to answer any particular technical questions that may arise. So welcome to you both. So members, any questions to Jane and any officers? So please. So we have first, Barbara Ashwood. We'll kick off with you, Barbara, as you're the local member.
Thank you, Chair. Jane, you mentioned the public footpath that runs through the southern part of the site, but no mention is made of the use of that footpath, and it actually is one of the major links right the way through Trumpington. It not only leads down to the busway, it comes out right near the spur to Addenbrooke, so that footpath is heavily used by pedestrians and cyclists accessing the busway and Addenbrooks. Also, Hobson Square is the site of our community centre. It also houses the only pharmacy in the village. And since March 2020, the GP surgery has moved into the community centre, where it occupies the whole of the second floor and is now a major health centre. There is constant traffic backwards and forwards from the two sides of Trumpington, heading west towards Waitrose, heading north, south, east, west, 3 schools in the area and the community college. And I'm disappointed that the footpath is just mentioned as a footpath with no mention of what a key role it plays in this. Thank you.
Would anybody like to come back with Councillor Ashwood's comments? If not, we'll move on to Councillor Kinsley.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been some time since I've been actually on this site, but perhaps somebody could tell me, my recollection is that when I was last there, there were a whole load of cars that actually were parked on the green space. Is that my imagination, or is that something obviously pre-COVID that took place? In which case, is there a way, do we have an idea of the sort of numbers of people parking on the green space?
There were historically several car parking parked on the green space. I don't have a formal number for it, and they were also along the access when it was used as a training centre.
Councillor Hunt, please.
Just a thank you to the officers. I know I'm an old Luddite. I'm delighted to see the report includes in brackets imperial measurements. It's made it much easier for me to understand. I know what an acre is. I don't know what a hectare is. And thank you very much for including allowance for elderly people. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So it looks as though we haven't got any more questions for officers. So now we'll move on to public speakers. Speaking in support of the application, I'd now like to invite Richard Smith. He's the agent for the application of the applicant to address the committee. Richard is joined by Kim Davis, Cambridgeshire County Council, CAMS 2020 Programme Manager, Alex G from Cambridgeshire County Council 2020 Spokes Workstream Lead, and Ken Hegarty from Hegson's Design Consultancy Limited. They're transport consultants, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. I'm Richard Smith, the planning consultant for this project, and I'm here today with our client from Cambridgeshire County Council, Kim Davies, and Alex G, and our transport consultant, Ken Hegarty, who are available to answer any questions you may have. The application is for the temporary change of use of the Cambridge Professional Development Centre to office use for County Council staff and the provision of a modular building. The proposed use of the building is considered to be acceptable in principle, as it would provide an employment use in a sustainable location in accordance with planning policy. We've also worked closely with the planning and transport officers at the County Council during the processing application to overcome any issues raised. The planning application now has no objections from statutory consultees or any from individual neighbouring properties, and the concerns expressed by the Residents Association regarding transport issues have been addressed through the updated travel plan, transport statement and mitigation measures proposed for our condition. We would hope, therefore, that you'll support your officer's recommendation of approval, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, so that was That was really good, short and sweet. We like that. So members, any questions for Richard, Alex or Ken, please? No, I can't see any hands up. Have I missed something at all? But I can't see any hands up for asking any. Oh, yes, I can. So it's Councillor Ashwood, please.
Thank you. The remarks about the highways, the transport stuff, it's fine, but we're in a situation, the population of Trumpington has nearly doubled in the last 8 years, and an awful lot of the movement between the various sites happens in that central area around the King George V and Paget Road, Foster Road. We should be actually looking at reducing traffic flow around there, not increasing it. And I do have serious concerns. There are a number of children who have to access the Fawcett School who need to pass directly in front of that and in that general area. And I'm concerned for safety of both children and older people, because we have a large number of elderly people in Trumpington. I am one of them. And Monkswell, Ely Place and Salisbury, which have been mentioned as being overlooked by the modular building, is actually sheltered housing for older people. I don't think we should be encouraging more traffic into the area. It's going to cause a loss of amenity and it is going to put people at risk.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Ashwood. Councillor Kinners, you've indicated that you wish to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, it's quite unusual, isn't it, to see an application for a porta cabin that's not for a school. So that's a step in the right direction. But I note that this is also a temporary consent for a porta cabin. And we know from bitter experience that temporary consent for 5 years often turns into temporary consent for 35 years, particularly with relation to schools. So I note that this is a site that's been put forward for housing development, and there is a cryptic comment in the report about the officers that will be using this site, and it says something along the lines of until alternative arrangements can be made. So I wonder if the officers could reflect on whether those alternative arrangements will be made before the end of the 5 years or before the end of the 35 years that we're more normally likely to see.
Yeah, please, so could somebody answer Councillor Kinley's comments or concerns?
Yeah, I can answer that, Chair, if I may. Hello, Councillor Kindersley, nice to see you again. There is no anticipated requirement to use the mobile site for more than 5 years. As you know, with the decommissioning of Shire Hall, opening up Alconbury, overlaid with think communities and looking at where the demand centres are, projecting forward the council's requirements for where it has its assets, it is likely that within the 5 years, certainly towards the end of the 5 year term, additional space will be found for those people using that site. So this isn't currently a 5 year temporary planning application with any envisagement for it to extend beyond the 5 year term.
Thank you very much, and nice to see you again as well. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed. Thank you.
Toes as well, Councillor Kindersley, that I'm sure. So, right, so we got no more, it doesn't seem to have got any more questions for that. So now we'll move to the local member for Trumpington, is Councillor Ashwood, who I now invite to address the committee. I just remind everyone who's watching the live stream that Councillor Ashwood is therefore not taking part in the debate or will vote on this particular item. So thank you. So thank you, Councillor Ashwood. Please carry on when you feel ready to
Chairman, if I were to withdraw my application to speak as member, does that mean I could then take part in the debate and the vote?
My feelings, probably not. But I think we ought to bring Jaspeet in here just to clarify the situation so we know we're all going to be right. So would you like to come and clarify that? Please?
Yeah, I mean, I think given that you've said you wanted to speak against the application,
Yeah.
I think it would be difficult to justify now saying that you're open-minded in respect to the application simply because in this open forum you've expressed a desire to speak against. So
that's fine, Jasmine. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying that. So Councillor Ashwood, would you like to continue with your presentation?
Yeah, I've said a lot of what I wanted to say. Trumpington is a growing, thriving community. It's been a building site now since 1998 and shows no sign of stopping. And what concerns me is that the area immediately to the south of the site, it's a residential area. The King George V playing field has been there since 1950. That has a large amount of children's play area. There is a skate park, there's a bowls club. It also houses Trumpington Pavilion, which runs classes and events 7 days a week. There, as I said, the footpath is now a main access for people living in the new development to the east to get through to the west side of the area. And there is a lot of pedestrian and cycle traffic there. The increase of the footpath to get to the busway for access to Addenbrooks is not going to diminish. It is going to get bigger and bigger with the number of new buildings and the expansion of the biomedical campus. The alternative to using that is to cycle down the main road to access the cycleway along the busway from the park and ride. It's an easy shortcut. It means people are walking and cycling and not using their cars. And I am really concerned about the impact on local amenity, the peace and quiet of the area, and also the safety of the residents. I would implore you to think very carefully about it before making this decision. They're not talking about a vast increase in numbers, but any increase in numbers for me is too much. We should be looking to diminish traffic around there, not increase it. Thank you, Chair.
So members, thank you, Councillor Ashwood. Members, any questions for Councillor Ashwood? If you do so, please again, would you raise your virtual hand function? Thank you. I can't see any members want to ask you any questions. So now, thank you, Councillor Ashwood. Now we'll move on to the debate then. Once again, if you wish to speak, please could you raise your virtual hand function. So we're in debate, members. Thank you. Councillor Kindersley, you've indicated that you wish to start the debate off.
Thank you, Chairman. Notwithstanding Councillor Ashwood's concerns about this site, again, we're in a situation where the statutory consultees have not objected. And of course, it is a temporary consent. And to that end, I would propose that we accept the recommendation. I can't, for the life of me, think of any reason why we wouldn't on this occasion. Sorry, Barbara.
Right, so I see no one with their hands up to, oh yes I can, Councillor Gardner please, and then followed by Councillor Hunt. So
thank you, Chairman. Well, I agree totally with Councillor Kindersley. I cannot see any reason why, any planning reason why we can object to this particular application, and as it's 5 years only, I am quite happy to second Councillor Kindersley's proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Hunt, you indicated that you wish to speak, and now you've taken your hand down.
That's correct. Hands down.
Hands down. Righty-ho. So,
I accurately predicted Councillor Kindersley moving to the vote.
yeah, you're absolutely right again. Thank you very much. So I can't see anybody, so I'm looking for, so members could have a proposer and a second for the recommendation as set in the report. I think I've got a Councillor Kindersley who wants to propose it, seconded by Councillor Gardner. I'm sure that's right. That planning permission should be granted subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 11.1. So Now I'll ask each committee member in turn if they agree with the recommendations set out in the report. So members, would you please unmute your microphone to respond? So I'm going round. So Councillor Gardner.
Approved, Chairman.
Yeah. Councillor Hartford.
Approve.
Councillor Hunt.
Approve.
Councillor Kindersley.
Approve.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, and appreciate the work of the officers on the report. So yes, approved.
Thank you for those kind comments, Councillor Scott. Councillor Gowing.
Approved.
And myself, of course, Councillor Connor, approve. So Democratic Services, report the outcome of the vote, please.
That's unanimously in favour, Chair.
Yeah, so thank you. Just to reiterate then, that application has been approved. So we'll go quickly on then. Summary of delegated decisions taken under delegated powers. So members, any questions? If they have, please raise their hand function. I can see no hands raised, so I take it there's no questions on that. So thank you, members. We've been asked to note the report, which we duly have. And that concludes the meeting today at 12:23. And thank you all for attending. We had exceptionally good debate this afternoon. And please keep yourself safe. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in the flesh at some time. Thank you, members.
Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.